Why isn't Alaska its own country? It's a question that makes more sense the longer you think about it. Alaska is massive, larger than California, Texas, and Montana combined. It's separated from the rest of the United States by hundreds of miles of Canadian wilderness. It sits closer to Russia than to the lower 48. And culturally, historically, and geographically, Alaska often feels like a nation all its own. So why didn't it become one? Let's dive into the surprising story behind America's most remote and misunderstood state. Chapter 1. A Land Apart. Start with the basics. Alaska is huge. Over 663,000 square miles of rugged wilderness, mountains, glaciers, forests, and tundra. It's so far west, it crosses into the Eastern Hemisphere. It's so far north, it touches the Arctic. And it's so far from the US mainland that you can't even drive there without going through Canada. Culturally, Alaska is also distinct. It's home to over 200 federally recognized native tribes. Many remote villages still speak indigenous languages. Life here revolves around subsistence, isolation, and adapting to extreme conditions. So on paper, it makes perfect sense to imagine Alaska as an independent country. And at several points in its history, that idea wasn't so far-fetched. Chapter 2. Russian Roots and an American Gamble. Before Alaska was part of the United States, it belonged to Russia. In the 1700s, Russian explorers and fur traders made their way across Siberia and into Alaska. They established outposts, hunted sea otters, and created a loose colonial system. But by the 1860s, Russia was stretched thin. Defending Alaska was costly and difficult. So in 1867, they offered to sell the territory to the United States. The price? Just $7.2 million, about 2 cents an acre. At the time, many Americans mocked the purchase, calling it Seward's Folly, after Secretary of State William H. Seward. But that so-called mistake would eventually turn out to be one of the best deals in U.S. history. Chapter 3. Should Alaska have gone its own way? After the purchase, Alaska wasn't exactly treated like part of the family. It was considered a military district, then a civil district, and eventually a U.S. territory, but it didn't get full rights or representation for decades. Many Alaskans, especially in the early 1900s, started to question whether they were better off on their own. Some wanted independence. Others thought they should form a new nation with parts of Canada. A few even pushed for annexation into Canada itself. But several factors kept Alaska tied to the U.S. First, there was money. Federal investment in military bases, roads, and infrastructure tied Alaska's economy closely to Washington, D.C. Second, there was strategy. During World War II and the Cold War, Alaska became a vital part of America's defense system. The U.S. wasn't about to give that up. Third, there was the oil. When massive petroleum reserves were discovered in Prudhoe Bay in the 1960s, the U.S. had even more reason to keep Alaska firmly in the fold. In 1959, after decades of debate, Alaska officially became the 49th state of the United States. Chapter 4. What if it had become a country? So, what if Alaska had gone its own way? It would have been the largest country in North America after Canada. It could have developed its own oil industry, foreign policy, and even alliances. Its GDP, thanks to oil, fishing, tourism, and minerals, might have supported a small but self-sufficient nation. But challenges would have been immense. Alaska relies heavily on U.S. subsidies, federal jobs, and defense spending. Infrastructure costs are high. Its population is low, and isolation makes trade and supply chains difficult. Even today, some Alaskans talk about independence, but most agree that, for now, the state is better off as part of the U.S. Still, the question lingers not because people seriously expect secession, but because Alaska truly feels like a place apart. Closing thoughts. Why isn't Alaska its own country? Because of timing, money, strategy, and history. But also because the people who call this place home, while fiercely independent, have found a way to balance that frontier spirit with the benefits of statehood. In the end, Alaska remains one of the most unique places in the world, not just geographically, but politically and culturally. It may be part of the United States, but it will always stand a little apart. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and let us know in the comments whether or not you think Alaska should be its own country.